Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into Kamal Ravikant's book, Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It.
Oh, yeah.
Now, you might be thinking,
Interesting choice.
yeah,
Yeah.
what does self-love have to do with leading a school?
Right.
That's exactly what we're here to unpack.
Yeah, and I think, it's something that, on the surface, it might seem a little unconventional
Yeah.
for educational leaders.
Yeah.
But as we dig deeper, I think there are going to be some really surprisingly relevant insights.
Okay, color me intrigued. I have to admit,
Yeah.
when I first saw the title, I was a bit skeptical. So what's the connection? How does self-love tie into effective school leadership?
Well, I think to understand that, it's important to start with the author's own journey.
Okay.
Ravikant was going through a really tough time in his life. He had some health issues, business struggles, personal loss, you name it. He was really at a low point.
Yeah.
And he realized he needed a drastic change. And so he decided to commit fully to loving himself.
Wow. So that's where the book's title comes from, right?
Yeah.
Love yourself, your life depends on it. But how did that actually play out for him?
So Ravikant, what he did was he developed these practical techniques to cultivate self-love.
Hmm?
And believe it or not, these practices can be incredibly powerful for school leaders.
Okay, now you've got my attention. Give me an example. What did he actually do to practice self-love?
Yeah, so one of his core practices is something he calls the mental loop.
Okay.
And it's so simple, he would just repeat the phrase, "I love myself,"
Okay.
constantly throughout the day.
Okay. I have to admit, at first glance, that sounds a little overly simplistic,
I know.
like something you'd find on a motivational poster.
Exactly.
How can simply repeating a phrase make a real difference in someone's life, let alone in a school setting?
Right. And, I had the same thought when I first read it. It sounds almost too easy.
Right.
But Ravikant argues that this repetition, especially when it's done with intention, can actually rewire your brain for positivity.
Okay. So it's about intentionally shifting your mental patterns. I can see how that could be helpful for anyone, but how does this connect to the specific challenges that school leaders face every day? How does rewiring your brain for positivity translate to better leadership in a school setting?
If you think about all the pressures school leaders face every single day, tough decisions, constant demands, sometimes even negativity from staff or parents. If you're not grounded in a strong sense of self and a positive outlook,
Yeah.
it's easy to get overwhelmed,
Right.
burn out, react in ways that don't serve you well.
That makes a lot of sense. So self-love is really about building resilience, which is critical for any leader, especially in education. But did he have other strategies beyond just repeating this phrase?
Yeah.
Did he offer any other practical tools for cultivating self-love?
Absolutely. So in addition to the mental loop, Ravikant also describes the 7-minute meditation where you visualize light flowing into your body
Okay.
while repeating, "I love myself."
Okay. Visualization techniques. I'm starting to see how this could help someone manage stress and maybe even approach challenges with a more positive attitude.
Right.
But was his approach all about forcing yourself to feel happy all the time?
Right.
Because let's be realistic, that's not always possible, especially in the often chaotic world of schools.
Yeah, and that's a great question. And it's an important distinction because Ravikant's not suggesting that we deny or suppress difficult emotions. It's not about, forcing happiness.
Yeah.
Instead, he emphasizes gently guiding your mind towards self-acceptance,
Okay.
acknowledging both your strengths and your weaknesses. And this, he argues, leads to greater compassion and understanding for others, which are, such important qualities at the heart of effective leadership.
So it's more about cultivating self-awareness and acceptance. I'm starting to see how that can be a powerful foundation for leadership. It's not about pretending everything is perfect, but rather approaching challenges from a place of strength and self-knowledge.
Exactly. And those qualities can then help you create a more positive and supportive environment for your team and ultimately for your students.
This is starting to make a lot of sense, but I'm curious about the practical application in a school setting.
Yeah.
How can a teacher, for example, use these techniques to deal with a particularly challenging student?
So imagine a teacher facing a disruptive student.
Right.
Instead of reacting impulsively, they could use that mental loop, silently affirming, "I love myself." This could help them just stay grounded, maintain a sense of calm, and respond more effectively to the situation.
Interesting. It's almost like a mental reset button
Yeah.
in the heat of the moment. I can see how that could help a teacher avoid getting pulled into a power struggle with a student and maintain a more positive and productive learning environment.
Yeah, it's all about creating that space to respond thoughtfully rather than reacting out of stress or frustration.
That's a really valuable insight.
Hmm.
I'm starting to see how these seemingly simple techniques from Ravikant's book can actually have a profound impact on the day-to-day realities of school leadership.
It's all about shifting our perspective and remembering that taking care of ourselves is not selfish. It's an essential part of being an effective leader.
This has been incredibly eye-opening. We're just scratching the surface here, and I'm eager to delve deeper into how these ideas can be applied at different levels of school leadership, from teachers in the classroom to principals leading a whole school. I'm fascinated to see how these principles of self-love can really make a difference.
Yeah. It's interesting, how this conversation keeps coming back to the idea of resilience.
Yes.
It's something we often talk about in the context of student well-being,
Right.
but it's equally important for those leading our schools.
Absolutely. As school leaders, we're constantly facing challenges, making tough decisions. It can be incredibly draining, both mentally and emotionally.
Yeah. And that's where I think Ravikant's ideas about self-love become really resonate because he argues that when you truly love and accept yourself, flaws and all,
Yeah.
it creates this foundation of inner strength that helps you weather the storms.
So it's not about ignoring problems or pretending everything is perfect.
Uh,
It's about having the inner resources to face those challenges head on without getting completely depleted.
yeah.
I can see how that would be invaluable for any school leader.
Exactly. And that resilience then allows you to show up more effectively for your
Yes.
staff, your students, and your community.
This makes me think about, the school leaders I've seen who just seem to radiate a sense of calm and confidence, even in the midst of chaos.
Right.
They don't seem to get rattled as easily.
Yeah.
Is that something you can learn, or is it just an innate quality?
That's a great question. And I think Ravikant would say that it's definitely something you can cultivate.
Okay.
He believes that self-love is like an overflowing cup. When you're filled with love for yourself, it naturally spills over into your interactions with others. You're less reactive, more grounded, better able to handle whatever comes your way.
I love that analogy. It really shifts the perspective from self-love being a selfish indulgence
Yeah.
to something that actually empowers you to be more present and effective in your relationships with others.
It's about recognizing that taking care of yourself is not a luxury, it's a necessity, especially if you're in a leadership role.
Yeah.
You can't pour from an empty cup.
Okay, so far we've talked about how self-love can help school leaders build resilience and create a more positive presence.
Right.
But what about the impact on relationships within a school? We all know that strong relationships are at the heart of a thriving school community. How does self-love play into that?
So this is where it gets really interesting. Ravikant suggests that when you genuinely love and accept yourself, you naturally become less judgmental
Oh,
and more accepting of others. It's as if your own self-acceptance creates space for you to see the good in others more easily.
so it's not about being naive or ignoring problems.
Right.
It's about approaching those problems from a place of understanding and compassion.
Exactly.
I could see how that could be a game changer when dealing with conflicts between teachers or even when addressing difficult behavior from students.
Absolutely. And it's not just about, managing difficult situations. It's about creating a culture of respect and trust where everyone feels seen and valued.
I'm starting to see a ripple effect here.
Yeah.
It's like self-love has the power to transform not just the individual leader,
Right.
but the entire school community.
Precisely. When a leader embodies self-love, it creates a permission structure for others to do the same. It becomes okay to prioritize well-being, to set healthy boundaries, to practice self-compassion. And when those things happen, it creates a more positive and supportive environment for everyone.
This is really resonating with me. We talk a lot about the importance of social emotional learning for students, but it seems like these same principles apply to adults as well, especially those in leadership positions.
You're absolutely right. I mean, school leaders are often expected to be superhuman,
Yeah.
but they're human beings too. They have emotions, they make mistakes, they need support.
So it's not about striving for perfection. It's about recognizing our shared humanity and leading with empathy and understanding.
Exactly. And I think that's a key takeaway from Ravikant's book. It's a reminder that self-love isn't just about feeling good, it's about being the best version of ourselves so that we can show up more fully for the people we serve.
This has been such an insightful discussion. I'm already thinking about ways to incorporate these ideas into my own leadership practices. But there's one piece I'm still curious about: the connection between self-love and communication.
Mm.
Communication is such a vital part of school leadership. How does self-love play a role in that?
That's a great point. Ravikant actually talks quite a bit about how self-love can make you a more effective communicator.
Okay.
He argues that when you're grounded in a sense of self-worth, you're less likely to take things personally or get defensive in challenging conversations.
That makes so much sense. So much of school leadership is about communication, giving feedback, resolving conflicts, building consensus. If you can approach those conversations from a place of self-assurance, it can completely change the dynamic.
Right. And it's not about, being a pushover or avoiding tough conversations.
Right.
It's about communicating your message with clarity and confidence, even when it's difficult.
Yeah.
And when you love yourself, you're more likely to believe in your own message and convey it with conviction.
That rings so true. I've definitely seen how a leader's confidence or lack thereof can influence how a message is received.
Right.
But how does self-love actually translate to confidence? Is it simply a matter of feeling good about yourself?
It's more nuanced than that. I think Ravikant suggests that true confidence stems from recognizing your inherent worth, regardless of your accomplishments or external validation. It's about accepting yourself unconditionally, just as you are.
That's such a powerful shift in perspective. So much of our culture, especially in education, is focused on achieving, improving ourselves.
Yeah.
But Ravikant is saying that true confidence comes from within,
And when you have that deep sense of self-acceptance, you're less reliant on external approval.
right?
You're free to be yourself, to speak your truth, to lead with authenticity.
I can see how that would be incredibly freeing, especially in a high-pressure world of school leadership.
It allows you to focus your energy on what truly matters, serving your students, supporting your staff, and making a positive impact on your school community.
This is all starting to click for me. Ravikant is suggesting that self-love isn't just about personal well-being. It's about building resilience, fostering strong relationships, and communicating effectively. These are all essential skills for any school leader.
And I think that's what makes this book so relevant for our audience. It's not just a feel-good self-help book. It's a practical guide to cultivating the inner strength and clarity needed to lead with courage, compassion, and authenticity.
I love how this conversation has really brought those connections to light. We've explored some powerful concepts today, but I know our listeners are probably eager to hear about some practical strategies for applying these ideas in their own schools.
You're right. Let's dive into some practical applications.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about how school leaders can actually take these principles of self-love and integrate them into their daily lives.
Yeah, I'm all ears. Give me some practical takeaways.
So one really simple but powerful technique, straight from Ravikant's playbook, is incorporating that mental loop into your routine. You can silently repeat, "I love myself," while you're getting ready in the morning, driving to work, or even just walking down the hallway.
That's a great idea. It's like a little mental reminder throughout the day
Yeah.
to stay grounded, connected to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I can see how that could be especially helpful, like before a challenging meeting or a difficult conversation.
Exactly. It's about creating that internal space for self-compassion. And if you have a few extra minutes, Ravikant's 7-minute meditation is another excellent tool. Even just taking a few deep breaths, visualizing that light flowing into your body while repeating "I love myself"
Yeah.
can help you approach a stressful situation from a calmer, more centered place.
Those are great practical tips for like individual self-care.
Right.
But what about applying these principles to interactions with others?
Yeah.
How can a school leader who is practicing self-love, how can they really approach conversations with staff, students, or families in a way that embodies these principles?
I think it all starts with listening. When you genuinely love and accept yourself, you're more likely to listen to others with an open heart and open mind without judgment or defensiveness.
That makes a lot of sense. We often talk about like active listening as a crucial leadership skill, but it seems like self-love actually enhances your capacity
Yep.
for truly hearing and understanding what others are saying.
I think that's spot on. When you're not caught up in your own ego or insecurities, you can be more present, attentive to the needs and perspectives of others. You're able to approach those conversations with more empathy and compassion.
This is really resonating with me. It's like self-love creates a ripple effect.
Yeah.
Not just within the individual leader, but throughout the entire school community.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And to bring it back to the context of school leadership, when you have a leader who's grounded in self-love, it sets such a powerful example
Yeah.
for everyone in this school. It creates a culture where it's okay to prioritize well-being, to be vulnerable, to support each other.
This has been such an insightful conversation. I'm already thinking about ways to incorporate these principles into my own leadership practices. But before we wrap up, are there any final nuggets of wisdom from Ravikant that you want to share with our listeners?
One thing that really struck me was Ravikant's emphasis on the fact that self-love is not a destination, it's a journey.
Hmm.
It's an ongoing practice that requires commitment and attention.
That's an important reminder. There's no magic formula or quick fix. It's about showing up for yourself every day, choosing love, and nurturing your own well-being.
And that's why it's so powerful. When you consistently choose love for yourself and others, it can transform your life and the lives of those around you. It can create a ripple effect of positivity that extends far beyond yourself.
Beautifully said. I think that's a perfect note to end on. This conversation has truly been a deep dive into the unexpected connection between self-love and school leadership.
Yeah.
And I think it highlights a powerful truth. Sometimes the most effective leadership starts from within.
I couldn't agree more. It all begins with taking care of ourselves so we can better serve our students, our staff, and our school communities.
To all our listeners out there, remember, choose love. Love yourself, love your work, love your students, and watch the magic unfold. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.